This happened to me in the summer about 2 years ago. I was living with my mother at the time, and she had taken herself off on vacation with a friend, so that I had the house entirely to myself. This tends to be a fairly happy occurrence for me, since I'm comfortable alone, and generally I could do whatever I wanted without motherly intrusion. It was a fairly typical night for me. I'd been chilling out in my computer room. For context, I have a bedroom upstairs in the house, and a room for myself downstairs that contains my computer. I was just playing around, chatting to some people, snacking on junk food, the usual Home Alone kid stuff. I think I was playing World of Warcraft back then. Now, I'm pretty bad when it comes to sleeping whenever I have nothing to get up for. My sleeping cycle goes completely out of whack, and I wind up waking up at strange times and staying up till the early hours of the morning. In this case, it must have been going well on 4 a.m. when this incident occurred. I think I was grinding in-game at the time. I usually listen to music in the background while I play, but I think it was in between songs when I heard what sounded like a cat letting out a high-pitched wail. We don't own a cat, but this in itself isn't too uncommon. There have always been a few neighborhood cats around. Sometimes they fight with each other. Sometimes there's other reasons for them crying out. But I've certainly heard things like that in the past. What alarmed me about this particular sound, though, was that it was coming directly from my back garden. I was worried that two cats were going at it and were trying to fight to the death in my backyard. Being a big animal lover, we used to own a lot of cats when we lived out in the country, and they're by far my favorite animal. I decided to go out into the back garden to try and startle the cats, make them disperse so that no one wound up getting too hurt. I opened the door and saw a pair of reflective feline eyes look up and then bolt over the fence and off into another housing estate. But I was confused. There was only one cat. What, then, had provoked it to cry out in such a manner, as if it were scared or hurt? It was at that point, then, that I heard the sounds of stones rattling together. Our back garden has quite a bit of gravel in it. It's a decorative sort of thing. A bit hard to describe without a picture, but you probably get the idea. I instinctively cast my eyes in the direction that I thought the rustling had come from. Now, I had just come out of a brightly lit house, and it was very, very dark at 4 a.m. There's no real lighting near my back garden, especially not near the fence where I'd heard the sound. My eyes hadn't quite adjusted to the night, but there's no mistaking what I saw. A very human-shaped shadow looming up from behind a small bush that we had growing near the fence. I had a bit of a nope moment, and rather swiftly slammed the door shut and locked it. But it was 4 a.m. I've always had a bit of an active imagination where horror is concerned. I'm the guy who sits around and reads creepypastas at home, with the lights turned out, and then has rather vivid and terrifying dreams. I figured it was probably my imagination. It wouldn't be the first time I'd thought I'd seen something, and it turned out to be nothing. At the time, the blinds on my room's windows had been taken off because they were soon to be replaced with curtains. This meant that the entire back garden was pretty much open to me if I looked out. I actually found this very disturbing and avoided looking in that direction. I've never been a fan of staring out into the darkness at night. When I went back into my room, I took a glance out and couldn't see the shadow that I thought I saw when I'd been out at the back door. So I shrugged and figured it had just been a trick of the light. So I went back to my game downstairs. About 20 minutes passed before I slid back from my desk and stood up to go fetch a drink. Just as I was heading to the door to head out towards the kitchen, something catches the corner of my eye near the window. I paused and turned to see something that, to this day, keeps my curtains closed whenever I'm in my room at night. There's a face pressing up against the window. It's not a human face either. Whoever it was, they had a mask on. I stopped dead at the door, holding my empty glass that I had been planning on filling with orange juice, when I'm looking eye to eye with someone pushing their masked face up against my window, standing in the dark garden at 4:20 a.m. My heart skipped a beat. The first thing I did was break eye contact. I then run to the kitchen and place the glass on the table. As I did, I heard rustling. Something moving on the gravel again. This time it was loud, pronounced, heavy footsteps on the stone. I turned to the kitchen window, and the face is there again. They followed me. This time, they slammed their hand on the window along with pushing their face against it. I think I hear them saying something, but I can't make it out. I notice they have gloves on and think this couldn't be a good sign. Yeah, 'cause a masked creeper is a good omen by itself. I'm caught between two options. They're around the back, and it'd take them a few seconds to get around to the front of the house if I chose to bolt from the kitchen and sprint out into the cul-de-sac and reach my neighbor's place. That'd be fast, but risky. I'm not all that physically fit, not particularly fat, but I don't do a lot of physical exercise, so I wasn't terribly confident in my cardio to hold up over the distance. What if they went inside the house after I left and stole something, then vanished before the cops could show up? It wasn't like I'd have time to open the door, lock it again, then bolt. My other option was to phone the police, then hope this nut job doesn't start trying to smash in the window and climb through. The window in the kitchen would have been a tough sell, but the one in my room wouldn't have been hurt at all. The figure in my window was tall, and the windowsill itself was low to the ground. If they wanted in, what was to stop them? Grabbing the phone, I decided I'd take my chance. I had been standing in the hallway at this point, having backed up away from the kitchen. I heard more banging on the window there and didn't want anything to do with it. At least in the hallway I couldn't see them, and he couldn't see me. I knew I could have phoned the cops then and there, but I went back into my room. Surprise, surprise, there he was again. I made a very obvious show of raising the phone and dialing the number, practically shouting down the phone, telling them exactly what was going on. Even though this guy knows the cops are coming, I told him very loudly, he stays there. In fact, I swear I hear him laughing. Then he smashes his head against the window. I literally hear the mask cracking against the glass. It even slips just a bit and I see a receding hairline peeking into view. I figured he was a nut job and was just going to try and force his way in. I live in a fairly small town, and the police aren't known for their rapid reaction time. Or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, I was desperate, and that's when I saw it. A little pellet gun that I had since I was a kid. The thing was broken and didn't even work anymore, but it looked very real. When I suddenly grabbed it and stormed towards the window, I started shouting for him to back off before I blow his brains all over the floor. He seemed startled by that and backed off. He even jumps a little, and then just like that, he's gone. I was terrified, scared nearly out of my mind, but the adrenaline took hold, and I managed to make myself look big enough to freak the guy out. I guess in that moment, he thought the gun was real, and I actually knew how to use it. The police arrived 10 minutes later and checked the house, the garden, surrounding neighbors' gardens, and the entire estate for any sign of the man at the window. But he was gone. They said he was, in all likelihood, some drunk teenager who found a leftover Halloween mask and decided to have a laugh. I believed them at the time. It helped me feel better. But I remember that shot of the person's hairline, and I remember their build. They were an older person, 30s or 40s. Drunk, maybe, but who knows what they really wanted. I never saw a weapon on them, but they could have very easily had one. There was never any further sightings of the masked tormentor, but I can tell you this. I've never felt truly comfortable in that room when I'm in the house alone ever since. At least not in the middle of the night or the early hours of the morning. When it's pitch black out, who knows what could be creeping around outside.